it's time to panel up. Let's see what we can learn, share some information, get the word out about the things we know, and answer the questions you need answered. So welcome to another great panel brought to you by comicbookadvocates.com and the On-Con Network. Hello and welcome to another exciting panel. This is called Pass It. Pass That Pitch. It's about passing it on to someone else. No one in the chat room, no one in the room with me right now. This is the second day I'm stag. No one seemed interested in this topic, which kind of alarms me considering how important this topic is. For those who didn't know, though, I am going to run the information about us changing to indie because I want to share this and I want you guys to see in my head while I'm sharing it. So I'm going to just play a video about Let Me Indie. Check it out. Let me indie. And that's our new initiative. I'm super excited about that. Today we're going to be talking about passing it. Unfortunately, the person I had lined up has an issue that I wanted to talk to, and that happens. I mean, this is life. Things are always going to happen, but we don't stop. We keep going. So I'm going to go ahead and put the comments in the chat section. Why don't you join us if you want to come on with us? The Indie Creators Unite. I like that. We're going to go ahead and pass the invite. We already have some great people trying to chat with us and talk with us. And you guys can see Jax in the background. The invite is out, so you guys can feel free to join us. So what does passing it mean? Well, it could be very different things. Perfect example, on social media, passing it would be considered sharing it. When you're talking about your own project and then you invite someone else in, or you tag someone, or you even tag your own creative team, because you're also passing it along to that creative team to be noticed for something that they are part of that you're doing. That could be considered passing it. Another way of passing it is the simple way of actually just at a show talking about where your friends are, where everyone is. So that's a simple one, and I'll give you some strategies on that today. And then finally, another way to pass it is by simply doing updates on your Kickstarter, trading updates, or even just doing updates to your friends. It's about passing on the information. It's about passing it to someone else so they can do something with you. And I'm pretty honestly involved in kind of teaching people how to do it, because I think a lot of people have trouble sharing space. I think, hi there, Sarah. I think a lot of people feel like, and anyone is welcome to come on today because we have an empty room with just me. So anyone who wants to come in and ask a question, feel free. We are opening it up to everyone so they can just come join us. I'm very excited to talk about passing it. So I'm passing it on to all of you fine people to come on in and join me. You're all welcome today. So, all right, we'll start with the social media since we're here. That share button is literally helping someone pass it, because not only are you passing it to your audience, but you're also giving the statement that, hey, you should share things. And that's super important to get that across. You want to always be able to make it very clear to people, hey, I want you guys to know that this person's a good person. This person is someone to follow. That's why I'm hitting this share button. Believe it or not, when we see something shared, in our minds, there's an added value to it because someone believes in it. That's a way to pass, believe it or not. Another way to pass on social media, of course, is to tag a creator and simply say something that is true. I notice I don't say something to say something that is nice. Don't say something that's nice. Don't say something that is untrue or you can't back it up. I want you guys to share information that you think is the right information and something that you can live with. So share proper information with each other, make sure that you're not sharing something that might be off-putting. So then we have the sharing it finally in a update. We'll talk about that since we're talking about social media. So when you guys are on social media, you want to be very aware. Sarah says the weather is messing with my internet right now, or I would join that room in there with you. Oh, well, sorry to hear the weather's got you down, Sarah. Yeah, the weather's been a little funky around here too. We might have thunderstorms rolling in right at 5 o'clock, so this is going to be a shorter show no matter what, because I just don't want to get kicked off. But today's our official 49th straight panel for the OnCon experience. So we'll have 49. This is my 53rd, so I get it. You're anyone's more than welcome. And after doing all that, I want to go on to our next project. The fact that it's not intentional, but a lot of people, when they come onto these panels, have a lot to say. And sometimes they even get a little too excited. And because of people getting excited, I actually went and kind of created something that is meant more tongue-in-cheek, but also it's to keep people from, attacking each other. So let me show you something. So basically, when people start talking over each other, because I hate when people talk over each other, and you can't really hear anything when someone's talking over each other. So I want to show you guys are going to notice the changing. That's just because I set up different rooms now, and I'm looking for the right room. There it is. All right. So when people start talking over each other, they're going to get this.
One at a time. Don't make me get the hose.
Yeah, I'm not serious. And if someone needs a timeout.
Timeout. Flag on the play.
And the flag on the play, I can either let play or not play. I did want people to know to chill out, and I even got one that's this is when it gets real. The timeout's when I'm nicely trying to get people to calm down, but if people are getting too aggressive with each other or are starting to fire shots at each other, we got that.
Enough. Go to your corners.
So, and this all came from doing all those panels. People, and there's nothing wrong with this. No one did it, I don't think, intentionally. No one's, except for Jax, who's behind me messing with me. I don't think anyone's done it actually in a way that was meant to be rude. And Sarah says, that makes me have to pee, the hose. Those are great. Thank you. I just want people to have fun when they come on a show, and I try to watch the group when we have a lot of people on. Is anyone seemingly not talking a lot? Is someone getting bored? You occasionally have people who show up on your show and they try to act like the host and they try to hijack the show, and I will have to take it back from them. That's just part of the hosting duties. So it's also my job. Hi, Teresa Dunn. It's also my job to make sure that I'm playing the referee a lot of times and making sure that everyone gets their fair share amount of time, because it's unfair that someone comes into this and they don't get the same ability to talk as everyone else. You know what I mean? That's not fair. We don't want to have that. We don't want anyone to feel like they're not getting the same treatment as everyone else, so they're not able to get things done like everyone else. And I don't want anyone to feel that way. So, that's all part of passing. When you're in a room and in a discussion, and I try to do this. I try to raise my hand. I try to let people know I don't try to talk over anyone, because I find it's unnecessary, believe it or not. And I find it's unnecessary because all you guys are going to do is try to talk over each other. You could hurt someone's feelings, and then you're in an awkward moment where people are trying to fight for it. So instead, what I try to do is I raise my hand. I don't try to budge in. But as the host of a show, I try to make sure that people also try to pass to each other. I encourage, pass it to this person. Don't wait for me to say it. And especially one of the ways that I found a good way to do that has been by setting up a rhythm in the show. So we have usually you'll see when we have people in here, we will have the box system, and we can go in a certain pattern. Even if I reverse the pattern or that, sometimes I'll get involved. Sometimes I'm just the talking head who does the the moderating. It depends what kind of topic we're talking about, how informational it is, and I do try to make sure that nothing is said on our panel that it's not factually correct. And if it's not factually correct, I feel like it's almost my duty to speak up and say something, because I don't want to spread misinformation about something. I do that in very rare occasions, and I do it only when I find it's pressing, but I do try to do it to make sure that everyone is on the same page with information. So, I kind of stress that, like, when you're on these shows, don't step on each other's toes. Have a natural pass to someone. Always say, what do you think, to the next person. Involve someone. Apologize if you think you stepped on your toe. Let someone else speak. This is why I always suggest, and here's the big thing. Everyone's like, well, if I don't say it now, I'm going to forget it, or someone else will make my point. If someone else makes your point, then that's fine, because it doesn't mean that you're anything less. It just means that you're in the right group of people. But keep a pad next to you. Write down the information. I write down many things, and I circle and cross things off as we're going. I write down different ideas that I want to be paying attention to. Careful, honey. And I do the best I can. And if you guys have any questions, as always, you're there to ask us those questions, to help us follow up with things. You guys have been amazing during this process. And I can't thank you guys enough for being part of it. And I really do appreciate it. We have tried to get many different people on here. And at times, you're mixing personalities that might not always exist well in nature. And it's just one of those things where you want to support people. You don't want to rub anyone the wrong way. You don't want to step on any toes. But it's going to happen. There are just people out there who are not inherently, I guess, born to be the same wavelength. And those different wavelengths of thinking can rub each other the wrong way. I've said it many times. I've known people that on surface value, I should not dislike, but there's just something about them that irked me. Doesn't mean I can't work with a person. As a retail manager, you learn very quickly you don't have much say in who you work with. But, I mean, it is hard to like everyone. I do go out of my way to try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and I try to allow them to make me not like them or like them. I don't make any assumptions. But we all have it. If anyone who tells you that they're not judging people even just a little bit, they're lying to you. And they don't mean to lie. They don't want to be honest about the fact that we all kind of look at people. And we all kind of we make those snap judgments sometimes with people. Maybe that person's too loud or just has too big of a voice. Or maybe you don't like how they dress, so they curse. They say dirty words like shit and fuck. And that bothers you. There's a lot of reasons that people find to dislike each other. But when you're bringing that many personalities onto these live streams, it becomes an issue with them even trying to pass to each other. You can I've read the room a couple of times where I knew two people weren't getting along. And so it's hard for that pass moment. And that's why if you're ever running a show, it becomes very important that you be the one that is making sure the passing is happening. So, I can't stress this enough. So many people do not take enough time to be considerate of other people's time. And I get that with people showing up late to these things. I've gotten it where people have forgotten about it after committing to it. And not all of them meant it maliciously. Some were honest little mistakes that no one intended to have. It's an Indie Creators Unite says, that's why I created Indie Creators Unite, trying to get info about the creators out to the world. And yes, that's exactly what we're all trying to do. And if you want to tell us about a website that you're running it through or a page, please leave it in the messages, and we'll share it up on the screen. As a matter of fact, let's. I didn't even realize it did not. I don't know why it didn't. There it goes. So I can actually make that bigger because I don't have anyone else in the room with me right now. So we're going to blow it up so everyone at home can see it as well. There we go. And that's, by the way, much love for changing to Indie instead of Indie. I love that. Much love and appreciation for that. And Sarah says to us, agreed that some people can simply rub each other the wrong way for whatever reason. And it happens. It happens. Even on paper, these two should be friends. And then for some reason, they're not. And that's just the reality of the situation. It's what happens. Sorry, I saw Spinny on the Facebook. I'm not sure if the weather down here is problematic. We'll have to keep an eye on that. If I do sign off early, I apologize. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move up to our other side of this because I'm not sure because I can hear thunder in the area. The weather's going to be funky around my house for the next couple of hours, so I expected that. So let's talk about being at a show and what passing means. Well, there's two ways to pass at a show. First one is the table. If you're at a table with someone, it becomes very important that you be careful about who you're spending time with. Because there are some people who are never going to be in the same mindset as you, meaning they're there just for them. They are there just to do what they have to do and get what they have to get out of the situation. And they are not at all interested in helping anyone but themselves. And that is not someone you want to be with as far as the show goes. Give me 1 second. I'm going to let you guys... I just have to run to help Jax with something. So please take a minute and watch our new show about the 7 reasons and see why that's important. Welcome to the 7 Reasons to Back It. Our show's concept is that each creator is invited on to answer 7 questions about their crowdfunding campaigns. Over the 7 rounds of questions, creators are eliminated by a guest judge, and only the best answers move the creator onward. The creators have 60 seconds to answer these questions. The first 5 questions are given by the host, and then the last 2 are picked by the guest judge. Guest judges have Hell's Kitchen rules, meaning the judge picks when people are eliminated, and even if they're not, 1 round can have 0 eliminations or up to 5. Judges will be giving real-time feedback at the end of each round to help the creators learn. Judges can and may ask follow-up questions at their discretion at the end of each round. The winner goes on to get 15 minutes of fame or can choose to get the first 15 minutes of the next upcoming show. And in that case, the runner-up gets the spotlight. This is hosted by the Comics Devil and proud comic book advocate, Mr. Anderson, which you can find the devil in his tails at MrAnderson.com. This program is brought to you by comicbookadvocates.com and the Advocating Network. All right, let's introduce our guest judge for this week and the contestants who want to prove their crowdfunding is worth the spotlight. And we're back. I'll put on my camera in 1 second. Jax needed my help in the bathroom. We're in the middle of potty training. So, sorry about that. Luckily, we have these videos now. So, not every show is going to be the best show in the world. But it's making sure that you get through it. All right. So, I am officially back. And so, at the table, when you're sharing a table with someone, and they're not really talking about your books. They're not even trying to help you. All they talk about is just themselves and their books. You can have a conversation. You have to have a conversation, basically. You want to. Let's put it the right way. First thing you want to do is you don't want to get confrontational. Never accuse someone of anything. You try humor if you're a naturally humor person. You could try to kind of point out by passing for them. Like a lot of times I'll pass to them and I'll point out, hey, yeah, I did that person buy a book? And you could know they bought a book, but you're trying to point out to them, hey, look what I can do for you. Maybe we should do this for each other. And sometimes you just have to cut to the chase and have a conversation. And one of the worst things you guys can do is step on each other's pitches. If one person's pitching, you have to shut your mouth. You have to let the other person just have a conversation without you. And you have to allow for an answer you might not like, honestly. You might get someone who gets a little frustrated with you, who is not really a type of person who's going to be that. And I'm sorry, I know that's not the positive of it. And of course, I'm saving the positive for the other side of this. But it is sometimes just a thing where you're going to have a problem with someone, not necessarily passing it. And that can be problematic. And sorry, wrong one. Real issue. And you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can. You're doing everything you can to make sure that you're being a good, whether it's your table or not, whether you're being a good co-tabler. So here's how to have the conversation the right way. Just be like, hey, I really think we could benefit from a relationship where I talk about your books when I'm done pitching and you talk about my books when you're done pitching, whether you have a sale or not. There's a great way to understand a conversation. No, go over there, be on the video, and be a good boy. There's a great way to have that conversation where you're just talking about passing to each other. You're just trying to have that conversation where you are just, openly trying to talk about it. I'll get right to you, Indie Creators Unite. You want to have that open conversation where you're really encouraging someone to be part of that conversation. And kind of ask them about their book, kind of ask them about why they're not passing it. Just honesty in that. Truly, honesty. And, well, I really think this will work. And if they're like, well, I don't know how to pitch your books, that could really just be it. It could be that, you guys are new to each other. And at the very beginning of the show, because at this point, you probably haven't done this. So I'm going to let you know what to do right away. At the very beginning of the show, you should just say, hey, let's tell each other about each other's books. If we tell each other about each other's books, if we walk away or if we're talking to someone and we made a sale, maybe we can help each other. And if you're running a charge card, you could go, hey, why don't you ask my friend about this book? Let's see if any of our books match up. That's the conversation you want to have. Because if you're sharing a table, because a lot of times you're not forced to share tables. So this is a decision you've made to share a table or someone's invited you. And especially if you're invited, I stress this a lot. If you're invited, be a pleasant person who's been invited. Don't take advantage of it. Don't go away from your table. Don't take 100 smoke breaks. Don't go get celebrity autographs. Don't set up your stuff and disappear for the whole show and expect someone else to sell your stuff. That's a very ugly thing, and that's very anti-pair. And for those who don't know what pair is, and we're going to show that right now, I need you guys to commit this one to memory. I need you to understand the importance of pairs. So we're going to go ahead and play the pair.
Be a pair. Be professional. Be ethical. Be authentic. Be respectful. Remember, in this industry for comics, be a pair. Art provided by Chris Mad. Look up Chris Mad Art on Facebook today.
And that's so important. If you could just appreciate and put all of that energy into that, I think that you would find a very open conversation with someone about how to better deal with the situation. Because you're really there to be successful together. You guys aren't competing. So, set up a standard. Like, let's see where our books, you guys should have been talking about this weeks before. But now, hopefully, if you guys see this video, you can now pass this video on to someone and they can watch it and giggle at the fact that still to this date, things go wrong in a video. But also they'll see, these simple factors, just really talking about each other's books, really having a conversation with someone about the books, because you're there to be successful with each other. You can help each other. I can't tell you that when I get someone to be on the passing road, and they understand how to pass back and forth, I've helped sell other people's books after I sold my books. So I got the win, and I got someone else to win. It did not cost me the win. I'm not telling you to sacrifice your books and your ability to be there to pitch. I'm not saying if someone shows up to your table, you have to go, oh, well, the person with me is so much better than me. Buy their books. That's not the intention of this conversation at all. And if you guys think that, you're just insane. The conversation we're having is about finding a way to work with someone and not be against them. And we can even flip that as opposed to, and I'll go over this in a linear fashion when you show up to a show, and how to deal with other comic book creators that you might be with that are friends and might be brand new, and you might have that. So we'll do that in 1 second. A couple other final notes at sharing a table with someone. If you're sharing them in advance and you know that, why don't you send each other PDFs of the book? Really smart idea, right? If you guys read each other's books, or at least even flip through them, you have a basic understanding of what the other person is all about. That will help. That will do it. Sarah says you're not lagging. Okay, that's good. Sarah says agreed that some people can simply. Oh, I guess it's just. See, Facebook's giving me the issue where it's reading the comments and it's like doubling some of them up. So something must be going on today with this. So we're gonna keep an eye out. But I think we're still live. Thank you, Sarah, for letting us know that. And Jaxie, go watch your videos. And Jax is in a mood today. It's just one of those days. Jax, no. Happy hands. Go. Now. Don't misbehave. So, see, and I mean, I've been at tables with people and they've seen Jax having a problem, because they knew my books. They were able to answer questions when Jax is acting up. This is nothing new to me, dealing with Jax getting upset and having a moment where he suddenly either wants attention or has just had a moment where he had to go to the bathroom, or, you know, those things are real life things that come up. So having someone at your table or even next to you on your side, wanting to be there to cheerlead you and wanting to help you throughout the way is an amazing thing. Okay, so Sarah, yes, be successful together. There are a lot of books. I have heard about that, so it's important to start a conversation. Very smart to send a PDF to your fellow panelists before bringing them on live. Well, I wouldn't do it necessarily just for a panel, unless we were talking about my book. But if you're going to have someone, Jax, you're being very rude. If you're going to have someone at your table actually doing that, being with you, you want them to have an intro. So, like, for example, maybe in the future, what I'll do is I'll go, hey, if you ever want to know how to, like, kind of pitch me, here, check out this video.
Mr. Anderson is the unboxable advocating creator known as the devilish comics creator who will tempt you with his devilish tales. He creates books about fetish, monsters, and more, and offers free spanks and hugs. He also teaches morals with farts. Check out the Comics Devil by going to MrAnderson.com.
Gotta love them when they turn 5. They decide they're in charge of everything. So, yeah, I would send them that video, and now you have a better understanding of even how to pitch me. And I do have people who are at my table who are very uncomfortable with the fetish book. And I tell them the simple tagline. This is where your pitches are so important. And I'll write them down. Barbara Unleashed is like 50 Shades of Grey. If an adult wrote it that knew what they were talking about, that instantly resonates with people. So much so that it's been so successful for people to sell my books without me being there, with just that quickly, because I don't have a very complex one. Even my kids' book, it teaches morals with farts. Very quick one-liners I can write on a piece of paper, and usually I'll have a printout for someone to read, or what we had was menus, and I made actual menus that explain this, and I'm going to be updating them, hopefully so I can do a show in the near future where I can just have a menu at a table and someone can flip through it when they're also at my table. So now, all right, so that's if you know who's going to be next to you. Let's say that you show up at a show. You look at the diagram, and on the diagram, they just list the person's name. They don't put a website a lot of times. You can look it up, but let's just say for the argument of this conversation, their name is John Smith. And you could look up John Smith. You're going to find a lot of John Smiths. I'll do it right now. So first thing, of course, you're going to wonder, is it on your friends list? If you're far from home, there's likelihood this is not going to be a person that you know. So I hit John Smith, and I call up a bunch of things. One thing that comes up is Creative Comics and Collectibles. You could try to click around and see if that person is the same person. Sometimes people advertise where they're going. More than likely, you're not going to find who they are, unless it's someone you know. So you can't get in advance anything for it. So you show up at the show. You hope they're a good neighbor. We had a whole conversation about that recently. You do what you do when you get there. You do your setup. You have everything set up the right way. And you hope that you're doing a good job and you're not making anyone mad, right? You did everything you're supposed to do. You fell in within the lines. Hopefully, you've already introduced yourself at one point during setup and said, hey, my name is, I do this. Nice to meet you. You should always be introducing yourself to at least the two people on either side of you. If time permits, the people behind you, maybe, and definitely the people possibly in front of you. Now, you don't have to introduce yourself to everybody if you don't want to, but especially the people on left or right, because when you have to go pee-pee, you're going to be talking to them to watch your table. Now, if you're stuck between two crafters, you're not going to be able to really pass to each other. It's just the reality of the situation. You're not going to be able to pass much. And I mean, in all honesty, sometimes what some crafters do is they put their stuff so close to your side of the table that people are gonna ask you how much it is. This is why I deliberately have the racks I do now. If someone does have a lot of crafts and they try to point it in my thing, I put up my my thing on the side of the table. And it's not to block them necessarily, it's just to have people realize that I'm not selling that. Because I can't blame a person who comes to a show wondering if I sell that. So if I can put those on the edges of my table, it makes a clear view of everything that's involved on my table. So that is how I handle that. But I'm also cordial. Being cordial and polite goes a long way. Now, if you're lucky enough to be next to content creators, this is my suggestion. Talk to each other about each other's books. Ask each other about things. Start to build a relationship. This is good in many different ways. The first reason it's good is because it could be getting you another person in the industry that you can talk to and bounce show ideas off. Like, what show do you hear is good, especially if you're from away from home, can catch you up to the local area and what the local area considers a good show. Now, if you are at a home show and they're far away, you can help them, and then later they can return that. Remember, you're trying to be at these shows to network. So begin your networking process right now and then get involved. Find out what they're selling. Now, they might be someone who directly competes with a book with yours, and the pass might be very hard. I happen to always find a way to easily pass because I don't have one book and I don't get territorial. I don't do that. But if you legitimately, if you're just a horror writer and the person next to you is a horror writer, you guys are probably going to have a hard time passing to each other if you haven't made a sale, because that means the one person probably didn't like horror. And there might be, honestly, some ego where you're like, well, I don't want them to buy that, if you're being honest with yourself, because it'll make you feel that. But I'd still suggest trying to pass if you think the person is open to things. If they certainly bought the horror when you're doing a charge card, because charge card's one of those awkward moments. We all have to take the charge. You got to get it to work up. You got to put it in a thing. You're playing with your phone, so there's a couple minutes. The person is close enough to you and you have the ability, because sometimes the tables are a lot tighter, you could be like, hey, since you're getting this book, you should check that out. Unless you're having a conversation. I've noticed a lot of other creators can't carry a conversation while they're doing everything and typing things in or looking them up on their phone. So that's a perfect time, whether you're with someone at a table or there's someone right next to you that you can pass the conversation on. That's my suggestion. So try that. Try to pass right next to the person. Keep your customer entertained by the people around you. Now, if you have someone behind the table with you, save the pass to the very end. Have everything done and go, hey, by the way, as they're leaving, this is my card, and you should also check out my new friend, John. John Smith, he's a great creator too, and he writes horror as well. As a matter of fact, we were comparing notes about horror. I thought he had a really cool idea. Get them to have a bridge in. Now, this will encourage that person to hopefully pass back to you. The ability of passing becomes very good because it keeps the consumer entertained. I want you to understand, when I go to shows, I also ask people, well, why did you come to the show? Why are you here? I have conversations with people on purpose to understand the mechanics of the convention itself. Who's it drawing? What are the objectives of people who are there? And a lot of times the comic book creator fan, or the comic book fans, I should say, are looking for other comic books to read. They want to be enthralled by it. And if we could learn at a show to pass to each other, and I've passed people aisles away, hey, if you like this, because I always ask a person too, well, what do you like? If I ever get to a point where they're like, well, that's not for me, I'll ask, well, what do you like? If I've done my job and I walk the show floor, I usually have an answer. My table generally now has almost everything for everybody. But if there is something I don't have or they just don't like my stuff, I'm still going to try to pass it, especially if I think they're a good person. This is important, people. If you think the person in front of you is not a good person, is wasting people's time, is you get a bad read on them, you just feel like there's something off about them, do not pass them to another person. It could be your interaction, going back to what we said. But just in case, it's better to not pass someone who you think is weird to someone else, because that could get them into an awkward conversation with someone and make them feel uncomfortable. And you don't want to be trying to pass the wrong people. You're never always going to get this perfect. How you interact with one person is different than another, especially when you're passing to a young lady. And if you're a guy, the interactions might be very different. And by what I mean, if you're a guy, I mean if you're talking to a guy, or even a guy yourself behind the table. Either way, they might not be trying to hit on you. They might be trying to then hit on the girl you passed to. So, you know, it's not your fault, but try to make sure you're weeding out people who could be a negative force in the world. And then finally, always ask the person when you're going to like get food, if you're going to get yourself a soda, if you even took sodas and waters, always be cordial enough to ask, hey, would you like a soda? Would you like water? I'm going to get something from the snack bar. Would you like something? Or, you know, even if you're going to go to the bathroom, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Did you need anything while I'm out and about? See if they're okay. Sometimes they might even just be like, oh, could you grab me a paper towel from the snack line? I spilled some soda a while ago. I haven't been able to go yet. You want to build that relationship that invites the fact that you guys are working together. You know, ultimately, this comic book industry, every time a comic book is sold, that's a success for the entire industry. You have to mentally get to that moment where you're understanding that we're not really competing. The idea of competing is not true. We have books. They are either going to attract someone or not. That is a personal relationship between you and the reader. Very often and very rarely will someone run out of money and not be able to pick up what you have. And in that case, that's why you have a business card, to pass them a business card. And you can tell them about all the crowdfunding that you're going to be doing or are doing and translate that onto an online sale. I do it all the time. It is effective. It works. So stop treating the people around you, next to you, or even at your own table that you're sharing as competition. I assure you, you're not. The only way you're competition is you're selling the same product. And when I have someone at my table with the Advocator, if it's my table, I always let the guests sell the book. I just figure it's fair. I invited them. They are my guests, so they get to make the profits off the Advocator. Yeah, it sucks a little bit because, you know, I'm going to talk about the Advocator, and every time I sell it, they get the money. But ultimately, I invited them to the table. They've paid for their part of the table. And I like to be able to share tables. So I want to be someone that other people want to share tables with. And that also gives me opportunity. Like I said, Jax gets a little crazy every so often. You guys see how interruptive he can be to me and how it kind of throws me at times because I have to pay attention to my son. He's always going to be my priority. So having someone at a table with me, because this is the reality of my life, I don't have a support system where I can just leave my son. He is my responsibility. I am effectively a single dad, and I have to treat my life that way. So it's very important for me to share a table in some shows because I know my son will be with me and he deserves to not always be stuck behind a table. And even with my back, sometimes my back hurts really bad and I need to either sit down for a while. I'll even laid under a table to stretch my back out. I was in so much pain. Having someone there who can help me is priceless to me. So I try very hard to be a great host because that is my table. It's under my reputation. Of course, I expect them to behave, again, within the pair standard. I expect them to act accordingly and professional. I expect them to be pair.
Be a pair. Be professional. Be ethical. Be authentic. Be respectful. Remember, in this industry for comics, be a pair. Art provided by Chris Mad. Look up Chris Mad Art on Facebook today.
So if I'm interacting with the pair method, and they're interacting with the pair method, we can be successful together. There are going to be lulls at a show too, where you're going up and down. You're feeling like really great because you made a sale, and then it's 12 hours between your next sale. I have had horrible last days. I am notoriously bad with last days. And I think some of that comes from the fact that very often I make my sales immediately. I don't have a lot of comeback business anymore. Usually people buy when they see it or they come right back. And I think Sundays are a lot more I'll come back. But it also depends on the show. Sometimes it's good. Depends if you're rotating. Sundays are also typically more family days. So we'll see in the future, now that Cat Dad is officially rolled out, how that changes for me when we get back on the road. I hope that you guys have gotten everything I'm saying. I am going to check for some comments right now. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm glad that we're still streaming despite the problem we had a little earlier. And here we go. Let's do some comments. You hear Jackson in the background giving us the Comic-Con sounds. Let's see. All right. I am having 3 shows on my channel Monday. Will be Independent Corner, where I showcase authors. Wednesday, I will be talking about my writing. That's very cool. When you do that, if you would like us to share it on the comicbookadvocates.com, just tag me in it and just put Rob, share it on your site. The reason I ask people to do that is I just want to be clear that you want me to, that's something you want me to share, content that you want me to share. And it also helps remind me to put it on the site. We'd be happy to. Friday is Independent Creators News, where I will be letting people know what indies are coming out and with and letting and coming out with and with and letting, sorry, it being together threw me, with and letting people know about Kickstarters, what is ending and what is coming up. Super cool. That sounds really, really awesome. What time is that going to be on Friday? And then Argo Comics says, I haven't really had neighbors with similar products. So many print sellers that I often end up next to. Okay, so you're next to a print seller, Argo Comics. It doesn't mean that you can't take a minute and begin a relationship with them. I've actually become good friends with print sellers by just being gracious and being good. I'm honest about the fan art thing. I'm not a huge fan of people doing it. I think as a legal copyright holder, it bothers me a lot. Do I understand it? Of course. There's blame to be put on the show's back for that. So I don't blame them. I don't blame anyone around me. I don't blame the craftspeople for being in Artist Alley. I'm not mad at them. I get mad at the show. As long as they act professionally, they're more than welcome to be my neighbor. I don't get mad. That's the thing. You can't get mad at a person. They bought a spot they were put next to you. That's not their fault. And I don't hold that against them. Now, if you have cosplay neighbors or you have a crafts neighbor or you have a print neighbor or even a comic book creator neighbor who is being loud, disruptive, and you can't get to them, by all means, report them to the showrunner. I completely suggest that. Also, the people who make things really, really, really high and block everything. I mean, I've literally been in the shadow. It has made the place I was in. I had one show this year. My goodness. We were put next to cosplayers, and this was kind of my fault because I did ask to make sure that we were put in an area where I'd have an easy time getting in and out because I had jacks, and I hate being in the middle of the aisles with my bad back because I don't feel things with my feet. So a lot of times I'll kick other people's stuff or I'll step on it because I can't explain it other than I don't feel. It's like robotic limbs, and if I'm not looking down, like as you're looking down, you might feel something brush your leg. I don't get that feeling anymore. So I'll kick something, and I don't want to break anything. So I always ask, if you can't put me near an end, put me near a break in the aisle. If you put me a break where I can easily get in and out with jacks, we're good. But don't make me walk all the way around. It's just horrible. But I'll deal with it if that's all I get. So we are at the mercy of the random draw a lot of times with shows. I have started to encourage people for MegaCon, which we won't have this year, to reach out to other people and ask to be put together. Tampa Bay Comic-Con, Baltimore Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, and by default, all of the Reed Pop shows do an amazing job of cultivating an amazing artist alley. It's very exciting when you're right next to a fellow creator of a comic book. You have a lot more to talk about. However, that does not mean you can't endear yourself to people. They're still human beings. I have very outspoken about fan art, but I have friends who are into fan art. Absolutely, absolutely, not fans, friends. I am absolutely friends with people who do fan art. I think I said that right, but I just heard it wrong in my head. So, and I don't hold it against them. They're doing something because they're being allowed in a lot of ways. I do agree with that. And just real quick is why do I view this? Because I know a lot of people have heard me speak about this. Because someone has printed it. They got a printer to print a copyright material, right? And then they're at a show where the organizers are walking around and they can see that there's fan art up. I'm not going to blame a human being for a hustle. Just don't tell me what you're doing is the work of the Lord, or you have every right to do it. We won't get into a large conversation. A lot of my friends are like, look, I'm doing it to make money. I'm like, I get that. Maybe it bothers some other people a little bit more than it bothers me. It's not my responsibility. However, when I cultivate things and we do shows, I don't have fan art people in my area. And I've already pissed a few people off when I do the things I do down here in Florida, and I don't apologize for it. There was one guy I remember who tried to set up things, and I went up and I confronted him. He had felt I was rude, so I went over and I apologized. I was like, if I came off short, I apologize. No one told me you were coming. True story. I didn't know who you were. You'd introduced yourself to me, and all you did was start doing things instead of asking anyone anything. I was like, I didn't mean to be rude or that. My back's in a little bit of pain. I'm not making an excuse. I'm just merely letting you in on why I was acting this way. And I'm coming over because I realized I might have come off shortly. One of the things we weren't going to allow was fan art. And I explained to him why. And then he told me, well, I work for professionals. And I'm like, oh, professional company making this. And I started to talk to him. And as he was talking, he kind of began to out himself that what he was saying didn't really match up to what he wanted it to be. And I didn't feel bad for apologizing, because if I was rude, that was always bad. But I did point out to him, I was like, so you really, this is really just fan art, though, a lot of this. Just because Topps paid you to do something doesn't give you necessarily the right. There's a difference between a professional and a artist who is just trying to make money off of everything like that. And you want to go to a regular show, that's their choice. But here, this is about comic book creators. I'm sorry that you were put into this. You shouldn't have been added. I will talk to the person about future shows. And I'll be honest, the guy got... In a few minutes, baby. Hey. Go watch your video. Be a good boy. I'm busy right now, honey. All right, guys. I'm going to have to take a quick break to see what's up with him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you another one of our shows that we have coming out. So let's do, we have Kickstarter Pause tomorrow. So check out the video about what Kickstarter Pause is.
Welcome to Kickstarter Pause. So who wants to play? What is Kickstarter Pause? Well, it's when a guest sits down to watch all the crowdfunding videos we are advocating for, and they hit pause on a video when their interest is lost in that video. This is a fun way to teach creators about the attention spans of individuals and what works and does not work in their videos. Want to be a guest? Have a crowdfunding campaign? Reach out to us, but for now, let's start this program and introduce our guest judge.
Wait a minute. So you're back with us. We're going to be making popcorn in just a few minutes. That was what the emergency was. So tomorrow, Roland Mann will be on with us at 11 a.m. I'm pretty excited about that. So that's going to be an exciting Kickstarter Pause. So as you guys can see, the reality of my life is that my son needs my attention. He's only 5. He's going to be at that age where he's going to want things at times like popcorn. So being good to my neighbors is very important. But back to the story I was telling you. So that actually, the guy went behind my back and complained and said I was rude, and everyone else who was at the show defended me. But that person decided to make it a big deal and cry about it. The show wasn't very successful because the owner of the shop didn't exactly listen to the things I had asked, didn't do the things I had asked, and did a horrible job of doing anything that worked well. And I'm not going to rag on or tell you where it was, but the ultimate goal that we had failed when he started to intercede and try to put his friends in. So when it's my choice, yes, I will not necessarily like fan artists being in my presence where I am because I'm trying to promote something and I don't want the legality of it. Because believe it or not, I do believe in copyright law. But if someone's at a show, Argo Comics, and they're just at a show and everyone else has fan art, how can you really hold it against them? And Argo Comics goes on, Han was my only cosplay neighbor, so that was not a bad thing. Han? Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, look, some cosplayers are just a pleasure to be around. They're professional. And there's a difference here. There's definitely two types of cosplayers going to these conventions. There are the cosplayers who take what they do very seriously. They're very professional. They have business cards. They conduct themselves in the proper manner. And on top of it, they actually know about the characters they're cosplaying, even if it's just bios and a little bit of information. And then you have the cosplayers who consider conventions a party zone, who go there to act up and have fun, not realizing that that's a business for a lot of the people around them. They're inconsiderate neighbors. The same can be said for comic book creators. The same can be said for merchants. The same can be said for crafters. So while I do see it more in cosplayers, and I do think cosplayers are being given free access without earning it more often, I do think that leads to a bit of an issue. And it's much harder to be around a cosplayer because they are going to be there for different reasons. They are not there to actually kind of hang out with you. They are there just to do whatever they want. And, kind of, I don't even know. It depends on the cosplayer. And there are very professional cosplayers. So that's absolutely true. But I mean, you shouldn't really ever look at any of your neighbors as negative until they prove they're negative to you. Does that make sense? Because I've been next to some fantastic cosplayers, had some great conversations. I've seen good and bad. You do enough shows and you suddenly realize, well, yes, there is definitely cosplayers have a tendency to be a little more rambunctious, right? Comic book creators have a tendency to be a little barky. They definitely bark, some of them. And what does barking mean? It's the worst thing we can do in the world. You're yelling at people. You're using a megaphone. You're interrupting other people's pitches, trying to get people over. You're desperate. You're the desperate dude at the bar at 3 a.m. trying to go home with a girl. That is what it is. And don't be that. Don't be that person. Be the person who shakes hands, says hello to everyone, and does what you have to do. So hopefully you guys understand that sharing things, being a good neighbor is important. Being even with someone at a table and being able to share the air with someone else is super important. I cannot stress enough that everyone needs to share the space. No one owns it. You don't even own the table you're at. You bought a spot. That spot should be respected, but you don't own the con. The con wasn't set up for you. You're all part of a bigger, at that point, the industry isn't just comics. It's a lot of other things. So be respectful of the people. If someone's not into comics, don't yell at them. You can tease them a little bit. Earlier in my career, I used to tease them a little bit more. I don't really try to fish. What the term fishing is trying to get people to come over. I now have my displays pretty much set really well. I look for eye contact, and this comes with experience. I kind of understand better. I know how to read people, and it's why I can easily trade to any person who's around me if I understand them. So perfect example is my Fetish Monsters and More line. So what I do when someone comes up to the table is I introduce myself. My name is Mr. Anderson, and I create books about fetish, monsters, and more. And what I'm doing is looking for the eye to tick. Like when I say fetish monsters, they go like that, I know they're monsters. Well, like that, I know they're interested in maybe the fetish. If they go like this, the fetish, I know not to try to pitch them. When I say more, sometimes people are like, well, what do you mean more? I'm opening the door to a conversation. Now, through that more, they might say, well, what's the more? And I now have the ability to ask, well, what are you into? And I'll tell you what I have. But if I want to do the random fishing pitch, I could go off. I have a book about farts that teaches morals. I have The Advocator, that is the poo-poo platter of indie comics. And I see where their eyes light up. Does that make sense? You want to kind of find a way to communicate. Now, as they are lighting up to certain things, I'm also taking stock. Because if I don't find anything on my table that they like, I'll be like, well, what are you into? And I open that dialogue. And sometimes people come back to me and I can redirect it to my books. But I always keep that in mind. So if someone says they're into anime, well, we have The Advocator, which has a story in it that, and I'm drawing a blank on it. It's John Carthar's story. It's the girl with the big arm, and it's just not coming to me in my faculties right now. Let's see if I can see the cover right now. Lopsided. I can see the cover from here. So Lopsided. It's got an anime feel to it. It's a way that I can actually do that and get it done, and hopefully make that sale. But then if I know my friend Eric Hodson's around, he's got some anime drawings. So if they're an art fan, I can send them to there. If see, I don't really know a lot of anime people who do a lot of anime shows. I know Greg has some art. I'll walk the floor. Maybe I'll know Steve's there, and I'll pass him to Steve if Steve's there, and he's got some anime books. But I've walked it, and by doing that, I'm helping the industry, which is what this show is all about. Passing it is about helping everyone within the industry continue to sell comics, continue to get people who want comics to have comics in their hands. Hope you guys understand that. This is important that we work together. If we can keep people buying comics, then they'll keep coming back and they'll keep dragging their friends. More people will start showing up and be excited about comics. Don't talk. There was a one time 2 or 3 years ago when I was doing, we were still under Sinsel Comics. I used to call it the other better comics. And when I would table with someone, I'd realized I was kind of cutting their books. And I didn't mean to cut their books. I wanted to have that ego moment where it was like pounding the chest. Well, no, we do really great comics. I realized that if I had to put anyone down to say that my comics were better, then I was having a problem. It was my fault. I was doing something wrong. So I don't do that kind of stuff anymore. I make it about me. I make it about what I create. I don't mind downplaying 50 Shades of Grey. I'll always say my book is like 50 Shades of Grey if an adult had written the new ones they were talking about. However, I don't ever pressure anyone. I don't try to yell at people, and I try to do the pass because I want this industry to be something that's not, desperate creators make us all look bad. I get being in a bad show, but don't be a desperate creator. Be a creator who shows up, smiles, and remembers why you're there, remembers loving it. I mean, you guys have seen Jax bother me throughout this entire program today. That's my life on the road. And I'm still cordial. I still shake hands, and I still pass. So really think about the footprint you're putting out there. Think about how you could help someone because they could be helping you by keeping the industry going. When you see someone next to you who's selling prints, let them sell prints. It's not your job to police it. Talk to them, make a friend. Because believe it or not, they're going to tell you what a good show is. It's great to have friends who do prints because maybe you'll want to cover one day. If they're a cosplayer, don't instantly write them off because you think they're going to be loud and obnoxious. Treat them like you would anyone else. Let them prove you right or wrong by their actions, not by your preconceived notions. And if they're a crafter, understand they didn't choose to be right next to you. Yeah, they probably paid for a table that they probably don't qualify for, but that was the con's decision, not theirs. I mean, holding a grudge against them is not going to make the weekend any better. So find a way, even if someone says, well, I like it, The Last Unicorn, and you saw they were doing something for Last Unicorn, you could always just nicely say, well, I saw they had something for Last Unicorn, unless it's a real copyright issue, and I get that. Especially some crafters don't have the rights to do anything that they're doing at all because they are taking, like, literally copywritten stuff and showing it off. So I get all that. So realistically, in the end, just do your best to work with other people. We'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. for our 49th. Today was, I was 48. This is 49, actually, for us. Look at that. So tomorrow's 50. Tomorrow's officially 50 shows for the OnCon Network. So I'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Remember to check in 11 a.m. Eastern tomorrow for Kickstarter Pause.
Remember to be kind and share.